Okay, well, it's 6:30, so I guess we'll begin. This is our March meeting for Public Health and Safety. Welcome, everybody. We will take public comment at 7:20, and of course, we have a council meeting at 7:30. So Matt, I thought we could just work through the agenda that we have kind of in order. And, I know you have some updates along the way, so feel free, you and Ed, and I see the chief with us. Welcome, Chief.
Yeah,
Hi, Rob.
that sounds good, Rob. The thing that I'd like to spend the most time on this evening is the emergency access road at Price Crossing. I gave you the excuse me, an update via email. I see Evan Baum here, who is the representative of Price Crossing Homeowners Association, and I also see Barbara Fortner in attendance, representing herself and those who live on that block of Conway Ave.
Okay, good. So we'll reserve, at least 10 minutes for that. Okay, that'll be the third item we'll get to. Thank you, Matt. So let's start with the EAC recommendations. Just to review, we did receive a memo, and as a committee, we agreed to renew our membership with ICLEI. And so that is something we would like to move ahead with. I think we shared that with the full council already. So I don't know, Matt, if there's something more we would need to do on our end, or.
Yeah, I don't think so. Let me look into that and see what we need to do to get that moving. I believe that was approved at council level already, so I can do that administratively.
Okay, great. And, of course, we had that relationship through the PA grant program. So we're looking forward to reconnecting, and it gives us access to their consultants. It's an incredible value for a $500 monthly membership or yearly membership. So, okay, the other item from the EAC was the EV charging, costs, if there are any costs once those get up and running. And I know, Matt, that you're working on that, and you've been waiting for the electrician. Yeah.
Yep, that's right. Thanks, Rob. We'll know more once it's installed and once the borough staff has had a chance to learn how to manage each of those systems. And so I'm not in a position to answer how much the costs are going to be or what the rates are going to be quite yet. I just don't know enough about it. I haven't seen it, touched it, felt it yet. So I don't know, Ed, if you have any updates about the electrician, but last I heard we were waiting for the weather to break, and thankfully it looks like the weather's starting to break.
That's correct, Matt. We do have the units here in the Public Works shop. All the units and components are physically here. We're waiting for a set date from the electrical contractor, Keith Martin, who said it would probably be the second or third week in March. So I'm hoping we're still going to hold to that time frame.
Great. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate that. Okay, so the third item from the EAC memo was about a postcard. And this is something that has been in the works for a while. In fact, Barbara, who's here on the call, has worked on the recycling card. And we have Matt already posted for us on the borough website, the recycling guide. And so the EAC and Civic have joined forces. They would like to see some money for a postcard version of that recycling guide. So I don't know if we want to take just a minute to discuss that, Bob and Mona. I think the card is already prepared, so it would be a matter of if we agreed, it would be a pretty low impact project that I think EAC and Civic could coordinate with maybe help from the office manager.
Whoops. My only question, Rob, is like how much would it make sense to do something more substantial, like a refrigerator magnet, or like, or is that just asking for more like landfill waste, or or is it too expensive, or is that within the budget? So just did they think about something like that and sort of just think, well, why create more landfill, and maybe we should just have a postcard? Because I'm in favor of the postcard. I think it's really important to get that information in the hands of people through the mail. Not everybody necessarily sees the weekly newsletter or the email blast. So yeah.
Uh,
Let me know if you want me to answer any of that, because I can.
okay, thank you.
Oh, cool.
Can you just briefly, because we do have a packed agenda.
Yes. So the reason we wanted a postcard mailing is that it will go to every residence in the borough, including people who live in apartments. It'll go to people who have never signed up for the weekly email, who wouldn't even think to look on the website for this information. We really wanted people to have something that they could right away see. And it's 6x9, so you would put it on your refrigerator. No way, we would never even have considered a refrigerator magnet, Bob, because of the waste that would have created. This is on a piece of paper that can be recycled if somebody doesn't want it. And that, to us feels a sustainable way to communicate this information. And I know some people might say, oh, you're creating more waste using paper, but there is no one single way to get information out to everybody, as you guys all know. Email doesn't hit everybody, websites don't hit everybody. Mail, though, hits everybody. And so we felt it was really important to get this out there. It's going to have a lot of resources on the backside where people can go and look at things. So we think it's important.
Barbara, I appreciate. I just.
Yeah,
so,
I know.
You know how tight it is. Okay, so Bob, you're saying you would support it. Mona, is it something you're comfortable with?
I'm not sure about postage right now, paying for paper costs. EAC members, council members, other volunteers can walk around and flyer. The weather's getting nicer. I never got the borough newsletter yet. I mean, so Matt, I know you sent it a long time ago.
You must have been picking up on my telepathy, Mona.
Yeah.
I was going to offer a word of caution. There seems to be problems. I think everybody knows there are problems with the post office right now. We've been asking since December why the newsletters haven't been delivered, and we finally got an answer today in that the post office lost them all. So, right. So that's a whole nother conversation, and we can talk about that tonight if you want. It's a quick update. They're going to be reprinted at a cost. The newsletter manufacturer printer is going to be eating that cost, and we'll be reprinting them, and hopefully the post office won't lose this round. So I would just say that in thinking of bulk mailing for the postcard, just as a word of caution, things aren't good at the post office right now for bulk mail. That third class mail, they don't care about it anymore. So I like the idea of maybe hand delivering it. I think that would be maybe a more effective means.
And I offer two thoughts on that real quick, Rob. One is you hand deliver it. You cannot get it to most apartments in the borough because you cannot get inside the lobbies. So it misses some really critical people. So that's why we felt it was important to mail. The other thing is the type of mailing that we're planning to do is the same kind of mailing that Ed and Cindy Ridgway use for their calendar. And I don't know about you, but I've heard from so many people and saw a post on Facebook, they got theirs this year. So it may be the type of mailing. Before we decided to pull the string, I was going to check with Ed just to see, does he think that that's, that way works? Because it's a very particular type of direct door marketing, which is how we get all the junk, advertisements that we're like, why?
So thank
Rob,
you.
that's how we did the COVID mailing, Rob, with that Ed Ridgway's methodology. But we also, just to echo Mona's point of view, we do have a way to hand deliver to every residence within the borough, with the exception of the apartment buildings. And what we do when we're doing those mass walk around mailings is that we pull off the addresses for the apartment buildings and just drop those particular ones in the mail. So you can do I think you can do 90%, and then the 10% that are buildings that have limited access, you drop those in the mailbox.
Yeah, I would, that's what I was gonna say, Bob. I would say hand deliver most of them, the ones that are not accessible because they're apartments. Maybe mail them, maybe wait for the next newsletter. Maybe, you know, I just, if our newsletter hasn't gone out because it got lost by the post office, even though Matt was very diligent and got it out a long time ago, I'm not interested in like doing that right now. But I do think at some point we could do a mailing to apartments. I'm just not interested in it right now.
Well, then I guess I would say the civic would appreciate it then if the borough took over the distribution of this. Because if you're asking us to walk it around to all the residents,
Okay,
that's
Barbara, I'm
more
sorry.
than we can do.
we're
I
gonna-
know, we're drifting, I know. But
We're going
if-
to have to move on.
So if someone could get back to me and let me know, because we have a board meeting next Wednesday evening, I'd love to know how you'd like to see us proceed, or if we should just drop this altogether.
Okay.
Team effort. That's what Narberth is, a team effort.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate it. I know it's frustrating to deal with the mail right now. So it sounds to me like there's support for the printing costs, but not the postage.
yeah.
So is that what I'm hearing, Mona?
And until we know that the mail is working better. I mean, it's the office has a lot to deal with right now, and this to me is not like the #1 priority right now. I think it's important. I love the work that the Civic has done on this. We have a lot of higher end priorities right now.
Okay, so we could approve the printing costs if no one objects, and then we'll have to figure out a distribution plan. That would be separate. Okay. Thank you, Barbara, for the work you've done on that. Let's move to the shade tree, which is the next item. Shade Tree met after our meeting, and then Rick Bailey's chair emailed their recommendation to our committee, and he recommended that there be an option as part of the UNO process that Ed and Matt are very familiar with, you know, when houses turn over. There'd be an option on that form for the new owner to opt in to a tree planting. And this was something that, you know, the solicitor has looked at and I think discussed with the staff, and it seemed like the easiest step. And I wanted to just check with Matt and Ed if you think that would be easy, you know, as easy as I perceive it to be, or.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I think it actually generated from, you know, the genesis of it actually came from Ed. I think this was his idea, and understanding that, you know, in our use and occupancy permit application process, you know, a borough representative is going out to every property that sells, and that would be a really good touch point to incorporate this. And so we talked to Walco about it, and then the snow started falling. So it's a good idea. I think you've got support from the office. I think it does make sense. We haven't had any time to dedicate to it since then because we've just been dealing with a lot of snow and snow removal. So now that the snow is beginning to melt and we're coming out of the winter, I'm hoping that we can pick this up in the next month.
Okay, great. Okay, I know that Shade Tree would really appreciate this because it would generate a list of addresses for their biannual planting, and it's difficult to find those planting sites. So.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt. The other thing is that the solicitor was like, we can't mandate, you know, he was hesitant about mandating that thou shalt plant a tree, and it should be, and we can't hold up the use and occupancy permit due to a tree, but it is a good touch point to collect that data and make recommendations and provide, even if the Shade Tree Commission can come up with any flyers that we can attach to that application or the permit issued, we can, you know, that's another great touch point that we can forward them about why it's important to continue to plant and maintain shade trees.
Okay, great. Thank you, Matt. All right, so let's go to the dog barking ordinance discussion. So as a committee, we have consulted with our solicitor, and he has advised some minor amendments to the current ordinance. We do, of course, already have as part of our nuisance code, an ordinance that is in place, and residents can call the police. This is already enforceable, but the solicitor has recommended some minor revisions that he thought could strengthen the language, which we have as a committee in the memo from him. And he is not recommending specific times of day, and such as there shall be no barking from midnight to 6 a.m. He's also not recommending specific time limits, such as 15 minutes or 20 minutes of dog barking. And so I recognize that this will not satisfy the the request from a resident, Lisa McCann, who has been coming to our meetings. So now this is our decision point, and I think we could just decide to take it to the full council as part of our monthly report.
I think that makes sense. I've read the solicitor's language. I read a lot of the comments that came in from the public. To me, I understand the solicitor's reason for not wanting to incorporate specific timeframes, and so I think that it makes sense to me. But I'd like to hear what other members of council say. I tend to think, Rob, that the language the solicitor provides amended, it does make it a stronger or more, it's easier to read actually, the way he amended it. So I think it's worth considering the solicitor's amendments. I think unfortunately it probably doesn't change the ordinance in the substantial way that the resident who brought this to our attention would have hoped. But my understanding is that, like, if you don't have a permitted time frame for the activity, you can't really exclude the activity in any kind of a meaningful way at other times. And I understand that there was sort of the meaning behind the need for the timeframes, but I guess I have to defer to our solicitor in this matter, I think.
Yeah, and I just to clarify, I know Lisa's on the call, and we do want to hear from Lisa, but the solicitor did do some research for us to look at different municipalities and their nuisance codes. And he found that the amended version he's recommending does stand up in the courts as enforceable. Mona,
I have one more brief comment, Rob. This, as I've said before in previous meetings, this has come up one other time in my 10 years on the council. And I know that when it occurs for residents, it's really, the nuisance is really a nuisance, and it's really, it's been really a problem for Lisa, and it's been a problem for residents in the past. I did have a conversation with the chief who explained to me that actually in their records of policing, there are many instances of the police responding to animal nuisance and particularly to noise nuisances. And I didn't know that. I had thought all this time, well, that only happened twice, and when it happens, it's a bad problem, and really we should address that through the ordinance. And I think tightening the ordinance is a good idea. But what I didn't realize, and what is new data point for me, is that the police do respond to these calls regularly. It's part of what they see as their job. And they do resolve these kinds of situations frequently for residents. So I think it's really, if a resident needs police service, they do have to request it. And noise is certainly an instance in which you would need to request help from the police. I've done it myself in the past. So that's my comment. Thanks for your time, Rob.
okay, sure. I do want to, for the record, note that we received several emails on this question of the dog nuisance ordinance. And we received an email from Carl Ackerman supporting Lisa McCann. We also received 4 other emails from residents against the proposed timeframe. And those were from Aaron Walker, Joel DiBartolomeo, Neil Feldman, and Margaret and Jason Dietz. So we're seeing that people are coming down on both sides. And as a committee, I would be more comfortable moving ahead with the solicitor's recommendation.
So yeah, I definitely feel for the situation that Lisa has explained, hearing it only from Lisa's perspective, not from the other neighbor. I definitely also read some emails on both sides, people strongly in favor, people strongly against. I think in this kind of situation, it's really important to balance residents' rights. So I would tend to err on the side of being cautious and going with the solicitor's recommendations. I still am not certain why the time limit would, I thought we were going to be able to talk with the solicitor about it at our business meeting, but I guess we had other matters we had to talk about. But I'm still not clear on why there might be more police resources needed if there were time limits, or why it would be less defensible. I'm not, but I understand that he's done the research. I have not looked into all the court cases with it. So I would tend to err on the side of the caution with this one. A question though, does he believe this would make our ordinance more enforceable?
Yeah,
If we go to the trouble of doing this?
yeah, he said it already has teeth as is, but he's saying that the amended version matches what he sees in other court cases that have held up throughout the country. So he sees it as an improvement. Okay, well, let's go, because I know we need 10 minutes or so for the next item, which I think is the price crossing. Okay, so Matt or Ed?
Yeah, thank you, Rob. So we have an issue that I would like to bring to council's attention, and it has to do with the development at Price Crossing that was finally finished just about a year ago or so. I don't even know if it's been that long. There is an access road that is off of Conway Avenue that serves this development, and as part of the condition for final approval for this application, council, I think it was back in 2016, approved a removable or a collapsible bollard to be used and deployed on this access road. And the access road is to only be used for emergency vehicles. So we have documentation where the bollard exists on the final plan. We have sufficient enough documentation and engineer letters and approvals from council mandating that the collapsible bollard be installed, deployed, and used only for emergency vehicles. Police department, fire department, ambulance corps will all receive a set of keys for that, instructions on how to use that bollard. The borough agrees with that. The thing that is presenting a challenge has to do with trash collection. Now, what happened was that the plan was approved, built, and overlapping that was our trash contract. And if you look at the details that were provided from the engineer regarding the turning movements within Price Crossing, they used a truck that was significantly smaller than most trash haulers use. And so it's a logistical problem. Ed Harmon, and I have Mr. Harmon on the meeting tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to him here in a minute. I just wanted to give you some background on this. Mr. Harmon met with Republic numerous times on site, with truck drivers, with management, to see how they could maneuver the existing development. And they've concluded that Republic is not confident and does not believe they can safely navigate the currently constructed and approved plan. So they are requesting access to the keys to the bollard to use merely for trash and recycling collection once a week. Once Thursdays, once on Friday. I call it like 2.25 times a week. Because we have the Wednesdays are brush, just not a lot of brush most of the year. So it would be on a temporary basis, I'm going to suggest, because this contract was in place prior to the final build out of Price Crossing. We didn't really understand this detail, and Republic didn't bid the bid, understanding that they would have to use a smaller truck, which would have to be a larger cost. And so I'm actually going to, I want this to be a council decision. It's not a Matt West decision or an Ed Harmon decision. This is a council decision since it's based on the plans that were approved by council at that time. And so my recommendation would be for council to consider a temporary use of this road for trash collection until the next contract. We're a year and a half into the contract, a 3-year contract, so it would be a year and a half. And then at that time, this would then need to be baked into that next bid. That would alleviate the trash problem, the trash access problem, and minimize that the use of that access road. That's pretty much the nut of it. And I would like to hand this over to Mr. Harmon if he wants to add any more details to the situation. He's the one who's really been handling this. And I just want to take a minute and thank him for taking the time and meeting with Republic and really getting into the nitty-gritty details on this issue.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, we've looked at the plans, the architectural drawings, the turning radius diagrams for gaining entry and exiting the Price Crossings development. And if you look closely, there's a lot of intersecting lines where the trucks back up and pull forward to make different turns. And marking it in the field, while the construction was done properly to code, and it's just when you actually bring a truck up there and try to do those maneuvers, it doesn't work. We tried it several times on one event. I've had other supervisors look at it from Republic. I've also, like I said, measured it, went out there and hand measured the different turning spaces, and it's just quite short of what the full-size truck that Republic is using currently. So that's why we're asking for this reprieve, if you will, for the trash collection weekly.
Thanks, Ed. I'm sorry, Rob. And I would just want to reiterate that the borough is still in favor of mandating the use of the bollard. The bollard needs to be in place. The bollard needs to be used. We're asking for an exception at this time to be used also in not only just emergency management access, but for trash collection.
Agreed. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, so you're saying this would be council action would be required. Okay.
Yeah, I would recommend, let's discuss it here, and maybe if you wanted to bring it to council tonight to discuss during the committee report, I would recommend actually passing, having a motion. I'll coordinate with the borough solicitor to see if he recommends a resolution. It doesn't need to be an ordinance, but I do want it on the record that this is different than the final plans that were recorded, and that council is approving it with those conditions.
Hey, Rob, I'd just like to weigh in. I'd prefer that rather than to make my comments now, that we have this conversation with the full council, since that's what we're going anyway. Because I'm going to suggest that I'd rather the committee not make a recommendation one way or the other at this time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Is that all right with you too?
That's fine. But Matt, I just want to be clear. Was anyone else expecting to speak on this from the homeowners association? Or
yes. Yeah. So what the borough has done, we emailed Ms. Fortner, who is on the call tonight. Mr. Baum, Evan Baum, he represents the homeowners association for Price Crossing. And what the borough, we emailed those folks and had them send around the meeting invite, or told them about this meeting and encouraged them to attend. Mr. Harmon also put together a flyer advertising the meeting and hand delivered to all of the residents along Conway Avenue to make them aware of tonight. So I do assume that some of these new faces that are on the call tonight are here in response to that.
Yes.
Okay, so how about we do this? How about we try to just wrap up? Could we do, I think we could wrap up the other items pretty quickly, and then we could do public comment, and the folks that are here to comment on price crossing, we could try to start that at 7:15. Okay. Okay.
Sounds good, Rob.
May
Okay.
I ask one quick clarifying question? And Matt, I want to thank you for, I think it's your style and your way of operating that you respond to emails very quickly and very professionally. And I know you've been on top of this the whole time. And Ed, thank you so much for looking at all of this issue. You guys have looked at this a lot more in depth than I have been able to. So thank you. My one quick clarifying question, because my internet went in and out a little bit. I heard you say that this is maybe a temporary measure until the next trash. And what would change at the next trash contract that would change this issue?
Good question. And so it would be, it's a restriction, right? And so you have trash companies who expect that they can use their standard equipment. They bid, there's a cost to using specialized equipment. If this is a maneuver that's going to require them to use a smaller truck, that's an additional truck that they have to send to Narberth. That's additional staff time. It's just going to increase our costs. And so there will be pushback from the public right now. There has been pushback, and that it will negatively affect their contract because that's not how it was bid.
Okay.
Prior to accepting any trash contract, the approved contractor will actually come in and spend an entire day with Mr. Harmon riding the streets of Narberth, showing what the ins and outs. I know it sounds like a great fun time. Talking trash. I always love talking trash, right? Actually showing the unique layouts. There's that around Narberth Park, showing the tight squeezes. And this one wasn't identified. And so they're like, look, this wasn't identified to us prior to bidding this contract. It would have resulted in a different bid. So my recommendation, and Mr. Harmon and I discussed this morning, is that we can incorporate language in the next contract to identify these types of smaller areas that will require specialized equipment.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying.
Okay, so why don't we'll just kind of press pause on this because we'll return to it in the public comment. And how about we go to the roadside review process. And
yeah, so this is, I'm sorry, Rob, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, Matt, that I am receiving emails about other roads, including East Wynwood. There have been other roads as well. So I know that we do need a process. It just kind of affirms our committee's position that we really do need a process. And Matt, if you want to speak to. Good.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Rob. I'm sorry I'm sorry to report that we haven't made any progress on this. The last infrastructure meeting, we had the traffic engineer scheduled to have a kickoff discussion on establishing this process. And unfortunately, he had an emergency right before the meeting and was unable to attend. So we're going to pick this up at next month's infrastructure meeting. And so I'd like to carry this over to the next Public Health and Safety Committee to give you an update at that time. I do not want to delay this any longer. I agree. It is something that needs to be handled right now. And the traffic engineer is going to be taking the lead on this. So please, if those of you who are interested, please put that on your calendar to attend the infrastructure committee meeting later this month. I believe it's on the 23rd of March.
Okay, thank you, Matt. All right, the last item before public comment, and this is where we would turn to the chief. So, Chief, I know you have some updates. I don't know if there's any news on the MOU with Lower Merion, but I know you have other news you want to share about the, the good work of the police department.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair McGreevy. I would like to share about the MOU that myself and Superintendent Mike McGrath are scheduled to meet tomorrow. I feel pretty confident that we'll be able to finalize this quickly. And I did make a mention on the status of command report about that, that we'll be able to amend and share and finalize and sign that pretty quickly. So I'm confident and I'm encouraged by the meeting tomorrow. The other thing I would like to add is that, as you know, as everybody in council knows and the mayor knows, we've been reporting some great success recently in terms of reported activity in the borough. For example, year-to-date comparisons for theft are showing an over 50% decrease in that crime category, reporting to the Uniform Crime Reporting Statistics for the state in calendar year 2020 versus that of 19, which is outstanding. In addition to that, an activity a category not reported to Pennsylvania UCR because it's not required, it's not a Part 1 or a Part 2 offense, is suspicious activity, which is another code that we have in our record management system. That decrease is plus, more than 75%, which is outstanding. But one of the things which is absolutely unprecedented, which I've seen recently on Monday, is when we went to report our statistics to the Uniform Crime Reporting Database for February of 2021, there was absolutely no crime to report to that platform, to that database. And I attribute that to the good work of the officers. They're doing a great job. They're maintaining a strong omnipresence in the community. Some of it is good fortunate. For instance, we always usually have a fraud or harassment by communication. So, there's some good luck in there too. But the one thing I would like to mention about that, Rob, is that, again, it is unprecedented because we average between 8 to 14 jobs that are reported to the Pennsylvania State Police each month, based on our population of just over 4,300 people. So it is definitely good news for the borough of Narberth and remarkable news for our community as a whole.
That is great news. It's nice to have good news in the pandemic. Well, thank you, John. It's really great work that you are doing with the mayor. We appreciate it. Okay, well, I think we could move on now, unless there's anything else, Matt, that you wanted to touch on.
No, that's everything. Thanks.
Okay, well, why don't we start public comment because we have more folks than usual. So we can just go in order and whoever would like to start. Okay, Evan Baum.
Evening, everyone. Evan Baum, 24 Price Avenue, Price Crossing. And Barbara, it's nice to see you in the Brady Bunch style. I know we've been emailing. So appreciate, Matt, all of those details. Just a couple of things I would like to ask of this group to inform the conversation. In our association declarations, it's remarkably well documented the association's obligations with the stormwater management system that's been installed. Setting aside, we don't ourselves understand how we are to fulfill those obligations with the borough, and Matt, I imagine we'll figure that out later. There's really nothing documented in the association declarations about why the Price Crossing access road is to be considered for emergency access only. We understand that there's the presence of that collapsible bollard on the site plan that was approved, I think, back in 2016, but it's not evident to us or any of the owners, I should say me or any of the other 8 owners, as to what the decision was by Borough Council to treat the road as emergency access only, where that's documented, or if that decision was informed by some aspect of the borough's code. So we would, aside from sort of how the specific issue is handled, we'd really appreciate knowing what the decision was, where it's documented, and what it was informed by. We'd also love the borough to consider if there are other alternatives to the bollard. The option that the developer put in does require a key to be locked and unlocked, which would, as Matt indicated, obligate trash or police, fire, or other emergency services to have it and know how to operate it. It's unclear as to whether that would be a unique arrangement or if other properties within the borough have similar sort of arrangements for this sort of one-off. So it just seems strange to me and the other homeowners that that would be a logical determination for the borough. or if there are other alternatives that the borough would consider in place of something like is currently approved. One owner had asked if something like speed bumps to slow down traffic that might exit or enter out of that side of the property would be an acceptable alternative. So we'd love to just have more information about the decision that was made, where it's documented, and what it was actually governed by. And then similarly, if there are other alternatives that the borough would be willing to consider. Most recently, and the bollard is currently sitting in my garage because our snow removal service can't service the property with it being installed. There's no way for a plow to service the property without uninstalling it, otherwise risking damage to the bollard or the plow itself. So again, we're willing to work with the borough or consider other alternatives, or if we have to live with it, we'll figure out how to make it work. But a couple of weeks ago, put myself a letter in every door on Conway Avenue, letting them know sort of that we're, as an association, while trying to figure out the best way to resolve this. And we've been emailing with the borough and are open to other alternatives. But there's no real documentation that myself or any of the other owners have to truly understand what our obligations are here. So that's what I'd like to say, and appreciate everybody's time.
Hey, Rob, just briefly.
Go ahead.
I think you want to look in the conditions that were established by the SALDO, the subdivision land use ordinance, because I recall a vote many years ago when we discussed the bollard, and it was a recommendation. It was like stipulated as part of the development plan that road only be used in the event of an emergency. And I think the idea of the bollard was floated, and there was a fireman in the audience, and he said, and we said, well, won't the fire department need a key? And he said, no way, bollard's not going to stop us from getting to a fire. Like, we're just, and I doubt the snow would either. So I would question whether or not you need to pay to have a contractor to clear the snow from that access. It was more or less, the idea was to maintain kind of pedestrian access for the residents. But that's my recollection. Rob, that's all I wanted to add. But I would look at those conditions. Maybe our solicitor has them.
Yeah. So that's good, Bob. Thank you. I have been able to track down. Granted, this happened a long time, way back when, 2015. I've been able to track down. There's a Narberth Planning Commission letter, a borough engineer letter, and a response letter from the applicant that lays the groundwork, that references these emergency access only collapsible bollard. The challenge is that you're right, Mr. Baum, and thank you for your patience throughout this whole process. We're grossly understaffed right now, so I really appreciate your patience and waiting for us to get a good answer. The final plans that were submitted, and to what you alluded to, that with the homeowners association, it's not incorporated. The final plan shows the bollard on there, but nowhere on there does it have conditions saying thou shalt use it for emergency access only. And so I had actually asked that same question to the borough engineer and the borough solicitor, and they responded in saying that they believe that the back letters that we have from the Planning Commission, borough engineer, and the response letter are enough to substantiate and mandate that thou shalt have that collapsible bollard only for emergency access and pedestrian access. My understanding, and this is going in the way back machine, this was early on in my tenure, my understanding was that this was a response to the neighbors of that area, that they did not want an active thoroughfare, and that the entranceway is supposed to be on Price Avenue and not off of Conway. That's what I seem to remember those conversations being, and this was a good halfway point to have it there for emergency access only. I'm bringing it up because it's different. It's differing in reality now. This is the reality of it now that it's built. We're finding some challenges. Sometimes things that look good on paper might not necessarily translate well into the real world, which is why I'd like council to know about this. I want this discussion to continue, and I need guidance from council as to how we should rectify this situation. And I'd be happy to forward you those letters that I found. I just found them earlier this week. I've got them to you. And if you want them, I can, if you'd like to see a copy of that, I'd be happy to share those with you.
I'd appreciate it. I know at least one of the other owners in Price Crossing who, let's just say, probably is more looking for a more specific resolution here, would appreciate knowing that history. And I'd say thanks for working with us, and thanks to Barbara and other residents who might be on Conway who are sort of wondering, what's happening with this as well. So.
Okay, Matt, could you also copy the committee, or when you share those documents?
Well,
okay, let's go to our next comment. Barbara.
Well, I'll echo what everyone has said. I think Matt has been really diligent, and Ed as well, because I saw you down there a couple times, Ed, with the folks from Republic in looking into this. And I know this is like old and hard to remember. And I was on Borough Council when we talked about that emergency access road. And my recollection is exactly yours, Matt, that concern about this becoming a thoroughfare through, all the way through Price, up Price and then down Conway, that this would become like a street. And that wasn't the intention that anybody had in mind for that property. So anyway, I think the solution that you are suggesting, Matt, is a good one. I've noticed that when Republic comes out of there, they are very cautious, especially, there's often a car parked right across the street from that drive, and they are very cautious getting in and out. It's the FedEx trucks, it's the Amazon trucks, and it's some pickup trucks. I don't know if those are contractors or whatever, but it's also some sedans coming out of there that do not look and just kind of zip right out, and it's a little scary. So anyway, I really appreciate all the work everybody's done to try to come up with a solution. So thanks.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Okay, others that want to comment? I see Kimberly. Can you unmute?
Hi, yes, thank you for noticing I was here. I just wanted to thank you for letting me know about the meeting. My driveway is right next to the access road. So I was told when I moved in that it was only going to be emergency only. So, I mean, I was just wondering when that was going to happen, but it sounds like they're still kind of trying to work it out. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it was the bollard was installed with the understanding, and then it was run over, is my understanding.
Yeah.
So we've had a couple different problems with this bollard, and now we're trying to figure out a better solution.
Okay. And then I was just also wondering, just because not only is it an access road for cars, but it's also become an access road for the Price Crossing people to walk through. If they could put some sort of light, because when I back up, people are walking behind me late at night and they're dressed in black, and it's very difficult to see them. And we've asked my neighbors and I have asked because we've asked the owner if they could put a light or something up, and we haven't gotten a response yet, just because it's kind of tough when you have people walking their dogs and it's dark and they're wearing black and we can't see them, and it gets kind of scary. So I was just going to make that comment, and then just, I think it'll be great if it's just an emergency access, or at least if people don't go through it like 45 miles an hour at 6 a.m. in the morning when I'm trying to go to work, because it makes backing up, and then I'm always scared to death I'm going to hit somebody, because it has already become like, it's kind of calmed down. But when I first moved in, it was pretty much people were coming through like at 45, 50 miles an hour. So I appreciate anything you guys can do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we will be working on it. Okay, I see Lisa and Carol Marie. Lisa, do you want to go first?
I'm just going to say thank you to the committee for considering the ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. And we'll bring it to the council, so it will be a council decision. Okay, Carol Marie.
I trust that you all received the petition from the neighbors at the 200 block of Sabine Avenue about reviewing the effectiveness of the one-way signs. I got a reply from Matt, thank you, and from John Gallagher. And I just would like to let you know that, as you saw in my letter, it's very detailed about the elevation changes, and that the elevation change of 9 feet within a very short period of distance makes visibility down the block impossible until you're past the hill and headed down toward the park where the children are playing. I also would like to have you all note that as I was talking to our neighbors, the neighbors that have lived there for a while have all commented there used to be signs, which is true. When we moved in this block 12 years ago, there were signs. There were 4 other signs that are now missing, and they disappeared one day and never came back. And about 4 years ago, Bob Wigbright had said, yes, there were signs there, and we were promised more signs, which has not happened. Now, with the review that's going on, I'd like to know how we get first on the list to get our signs reviewed, because as spring is coming, the playground is getting even more populated and busier. So we're real concerned about the safety of the kids coming to the park, and would like to get these the directional traffic signs back up to protect the kids, the daycare, the food bank.
Okay, thank you, Marie. Matt has scheduled the traffic engineer for the next infrastructure meeting, and that's when we will be developing the process for reviewing the roadway signs. So that meeting is coming up in a couple weeks. If you can attend that, that would be helpful if you're available.
Oh, you know, I'm attending because we need to get this issue taken care of before a kid gets killed, now that we're having more and more kids coming to the park.
Okay, thank you, Cara Marie. Are there any other comments? Okay, well, I think we can adjourn. We'll have a few minutes break before the next meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Is the next meeting on a different Zoom address or this one?
Different.
Thank you.
Thank you all.